Hey guys, thanks for coming out. It's great to see you out here. My name's Kim. I'm a Chinese medical provider and practicing Taoist. And I know I had said I was done with the coronavirus updates, but hey, I lied because right now the opportunity of having a vaccine coming to market is really getting close to becoming a reality. It's pretty exciting because both Pfizer and Moderna are finishing their phase 3 clinical trials, which means they're going to be ready to ask the FDA for emergency use, which means we're going to be having vaccines delivered to us. I've had clients questioning me on what is this technology. Remember in my episode on the biggest healthcare challenge facing you today, I talked to why it's so important to be or have a patient advocate. And one of the functions of a patient advocate is to be able to complete the initial research so you can start to figure out what works best for you and to allow you to have more in-depth conversations with your medical provider. Here it is. This coronavirus, it's insanely risky. In the last 2 weeks, more and more people are comfortable talking about their infection and the lasting ramifications of the virus. And Twitter's probably one of the more vocal platforms. As celebrities and influencers talk about their positive test for COVID-19, more and more people are tweeting about some of the lasting health impacts of the disease. Asthma or some other impaired lung function is like the most popular post I read about. But I'm also reading about issues with brain function and dementia, post-viral heart attacks, and just a slew of other weird things. And pre-election, it was really hard for me to find this information. I really wanted to understand what my risk was if I survived an infection, and prior to 2 weeks ago, no one was comfortable talking about it. Nor were they posting pictures of their loved ones who had passed. And the weird thing is, the pictures I'm seeing are not 80-year-old seniors in a healthcare facility. These people look like they're in their 40s or 50s, healthy and vibrant. These people were me. That pushed me to produce the episode on coronavirus update, the 4 medications in your medicine cabinet, and their positive impact on COVID-19. But now we're going to have another decision facing us. What do we do when the vaccine becomes available? Right now, Moderna and Pfizer are leading the pack with their mRNA technology. Johnson & Johnson was working on an adenoviral vector vaccine that was pulled in the last few weeks due to an adverse event. So what are these technologies? mRNA vaccine technology, or messenger RNA, is one of 3 genetically engineered vaccine technologies. Okay, so first, there's the DNA vaccines, and then second, there's the mRNA vaccine, or the messenger RNA vaccine, and third is the adenoviral vaccines. There's over 200 vaccine candidates worldwide, and here in the United States, there's vaccine candidates in each of these categories. And in the DNA category I think it's pronounced Inovio, and in the mRNA category is Pfizer and Moderna, and in the adenoviral vector vaccines, we have Johnson & Johnson. And these are just some of the big hitters that are front runners in the race to a vaccine. And this is just focusing on the genetically engineered vaccines. So let me tell you, in concept, I like the concept of genetically engineered vaccine because it takes out the variability of life in vaccines created through naturally occurring processes like all the rest of our vaccines. And this risk really came to light back in 2009 with our flu vaccines. You know, we've used chicken eggs to create the flu vaccine for over 70 years. So it's a stable platform with a hitch. Every time we make these vaccines, we would have a mutation somewhere in the vaccine. And these mutations, they didn't pose a concern because a vaccine was really about making our immune system sensitive to one protein on the virus. The only protein our immune system could target. But in 2009, the mutation happened on that protein, hiding it from our immune system. Back in 2019, I produced an episode on this phenomena called Research Updates Flu Vaccine 2019. And the episode goes over the research that was happening and some of the short-term solutions of addressing the problem. Now, none of the short-term solutions fixed what caused the problem in the first place. In fact, they had the potential for making that problem even worse because the problem was diversity in nature coupled with using non-human DNA and injecting it in humans. I've been really curious how science was going to address the problem with the randomness of nature and life. So out of the 3 genetically engineered vaccines, it appears that the messenger RNA or the mRNA may have the potential to address this problem. All 3 of the technologies have been around for 20 to 30 years. Now, none of the technologies have an approved vaccine for human use. So let's look at what each of the technologies does have approved. So first off, DNA vaccines. They have 2 approved veterinarian vaccines in the U.S. First is the West Nile virus vaccine for horses, and the second is that melanoma vaccine for dogs. Second, the mRNA or the messenger RNA technology. This has no approved vaccines for either humans or animals. And the third technology, the adenovirus vaccine, this has 1 vaccine approved for rabies in wild animals. You're probably asking, what's an adenovirus and why do I care? Well, the adenoviruses are really common. There's about 60 of them, and they cause respiratory symptoms or stomach or intestinal issues. They can feel a lot like a cold or a flu, but they're not, and they're with us year round. Okay, there's an article that I read in Chemical and Engineering, and I would really highly support reading this article. It's called Adenoviral Vectors Are the New COVID-19 Vaccine Frontrunners. Can They Overcome Their Checkered Past? Now, this was when Johnson & Johnson was ahead of the pack. It's well written. It explains the adenoviral vaccines in clear, easy to understand language. It highlights the risk of these vaccines, and the adenoviral vaccine sounds like the concept is valid, but when you try to implement it, you just can't. With the DNA vaccines, I always hesitate when you're injecting something into our DNA. I just don't think that's a good idea. And the West Nile virus vaccine was causing so many adverse events in horses that I stopped using it. And I stopped following this vaccine when I stopped using it, although I can say I don't hear the same outrage that I heard when the initial vaccine came out, where, we had all these birth mutations, sudden death of the horses, reproduction concerns, just all sorts of weird DNA issues. So that's just me. I'm sure science would be more than willing to help me understand how naive my position is. And obviously, there have been improvements in the technology, but back in 2003, there was a review on DNA vaccines. One of the big problems with the DNA vaccines was reaching enough cells. So it really didn't work because it wasn't in enough cells. And according to a review initiated in 2015 and finalized in 2017, that is still a problem in humans. So I'm going to be curious to see how Inovio is going to overcome this obstacle. Now, all of this information that I'm referencing, you can find the links to the articles or to the research in the video description below. Or if you're looking at this in the blog, you can see it in the footnotes. Which leaves us with the messenger RNA vaccines or the mRNA vaccines. What I like about this concept is it's synthetic. So the risk involved in using chicken eggs to grow the virus and injecting the virus into the body are avoided. What I also like is the limited function of the mRNA in the body. So, messenger RNA is a recipe or instructions to our cells, which our cells read to make a protein. This vaccine is only delivering instructions to create one protein and has no other instructions. What I also like is this messenger RNA is supposed to degrade over time, so it's not going to be floating around your body constantly asking your cells to create this protein. So it has a natural termination date. On the other side, the biggest concern with Pfizer's messenger RNA vaccine is the need to keep it cold, really cold until use, and that's going to create logistics problems. Moderna doesn't need to be kept cold. That alone is going to make it the natural front runner over Pfizer. Now, the other thing that is going to be tough with these vaccines is its new technology. So, I had heard that there was concern that the data on these clinical trials, the phase 3, wasn't available before elections. But if you look, there just weren't enough infections before elections to open the data. And it's really a low number of infections that they were looking for. And I still question whether 90-some infections is enough to make a determination in a population of 30 to 45,000 people. Because, we just don't know what we don't know. And that brings me back to that article in Chemical and Engineering News. It highlighted what we learned about the adenovirus technology as we started trying to use it. Weird things happened. It was identified that people who had immunity to the adenovirus that was used in the vaccine had no protection. And then in some people, this technology caused this significant inflammation response that caused death. Now, the other weird thing is the researchers found that after your first injection, the body starts to mount an immune response to the vaccine. So it's not like you could use it a second time. Based on all that, right now, I like the concept of genetically engineered, and I like the mRNA technology the most of the three available. But this is really preliminary. I thought I had read somewhere that Pfizer was going to open their trial data towards the end of November to allow us to peer into the data, but I can't find that information anywhere. If you want to see the study design, there's a link to it in the video description below or online on my blog. And to get more information of the process, the process of getting approved and getting to market, CNBC did a great overview of the process of getting a COVID-19 vaccine to market and the mRNA vaccines. It's called What is an mRNA Coronavirus Vaccine? And really, that's such a small segment of this whole episode. It really goes into more depth on the speed of these coming to market, what that causes, what's the differentiators in that kind of process, the phases of the trials, and the emergency use approvals. Okay, that's an introduction to the genetically engineered vaccines. Good luck, you guys, and stay safe.